Yes, hello. Good morning, everyone. And Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Good morning.
So as Matthew said, we're going to be doing some good highlights of the Epson direct-to-garment printer and really a good overview of what direct-to-garment printing is. Before we get started here, I just wanted to thank Mike for joining us, and then everyone else who's on the webinar. Appreciate you spending your Thursday with us. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, we have a spot there that you can ask questions, and then Mike or myself will answer them as best we can through the webinar and then at the end of the webinar as well. So what we are going to be going over today, or what you guys will, your big takeaway, we're going to be showing you different equipment and the software for doing direct-to-garment printing. So you'll hear direct to garment or you'll hear DTG. That's the quick way of saying it. So Epson has, well, I'm sorry, I'm just jumping up there. We're going to be showing garment selection and really talking a lot about pre-treating the garment. And Epson has Garment Creator Program. This comes with the printer, and Mike will be going over the Garment Creator Program with us. We actually have some shots of printing with the Epson printer, so you'll see it kind of see it in action. We're going to go over some common questions that we hear often when we're speaking with people about DTG printing. So I'm going to go ahead and get a lot of the common questions answered at the end. We're going to bring Matthew back in. Matthew has some fun announcements that he's going to tell us all about. And then, of course, at the end, any questions that we haven't answered throughout the webinar, we're going to open that up to everybody and answer any questions that are remaining. All right, to start off, we've got the printer up on the left. Obviously, you know you're going to need to have a printer if you're going to do direct-to-garment printing. Just wanted to highlight some of the other components. You need to have a computer. What's great about Garment Creator, which is something we'll highlight later, is it is both PC and Mac based. We're going to go into that in more detail, the Garment Creator software program. You will want to work with some type of program that allows you to do some graphic art. There are many out there. These are not the main ones, or these are the ones that we hear or see most of the time: Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, CorelDRAW. But that's just kind of an example. You'll need to have some type of program that allows you to do artwork. If you don't know how to do artwork, there are websites that you can actually go out and buy artwork from different graphic designers. You can pay to have artwork done through a graphic designer, so just some way to get your designs. There is a process of pre-treating the garment, so that's what we have over here in the bottom left. These are different options for pre-treating the garments. The ink does have to be cured, so you can either use a heat press or a conveyor oven to cure the inks. And then, of course, your shirt. So whether you're working with a white shirt or colored shirts. So this kind of gives you a general overview of the equipment that you'll need to do this method of garment decorating. So we're going to focus on a lot of t-shirt and doing t-shirt decorating today, but it's not just t-shirts. So just know that you can do, polo shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, hats, leggings, baby onesies, towels, socks. I mean, you can read through this. And when it says and more, it's like and so much more. So there's a lot of different items that you can do with direct to garment decorating. So speaking about shirts, and that's where I'm really going to focus in on today, with DTG printing, cotton is king, is what I call it. The direct-to-garment ink adheres best to cotton. Ring spun cotton is even better, and we'll explain that why here in a few minutes. Bamboo, hemp, any like natural fiber, linen is fine. And then there is an option to do polyester. That is a future webinar, another webinar that we're going to offer. and kind of go more into the polyester process, I would say when you're getting into this, focus more on the natural fibers, the cottons, ring spun, and those natural fibers. So I want to show you what a natural fiber cotton looks like. And this is definitely a magnified image here. And cotton is obviously grown, not man-made. And there's different ways to harvest the cotton and to produce it. The yarn is made in many different ways. So the picture on the left, it's a representation of a fiber, cotton fiber, that's more of a like an entry level shirt. Kind of, you know, our cotton shirts that are priced more economical. And the picture on the right is more of it's a ring spun. And so this is where you're going to get more high quality cotton shirt, a softer feel, and a tighter knit or weave of the cotton. Speaking of getting a tighter knit or weave, I'm going to show you the next slide here. Now, here we go. This is a closer look of once the cotton or the fibers have been weaved into the shirt. And this is why some shirts, cotton shirts, feel smooth and other ones feel rough. The fibers are not combed through, and I guess I want to explain this, like they're just not as tight on more of the industry brand shirts versus you know, on a ring spun shirt, they're very tight and close together. So you can imagine what it looks like when, you know, droplet of ink drops down onto these different types of cotton fibers. And here's a good example. So the end results of your print is going to show up on the shirt. And it's not that one is wrong or one is right, but it's just for you to understand and have a good understanding of why one image might look, you know, one way on one shirt and another on another shirt. It's just going to make a difference, and it really depends on you, the printer, what you want and what your customers are willing to pay, you know, for the type of shirt that you're going to work with. So this is kind of our overview of shirts and understanding the difference between, you know, it works on cotton, works on all types of cotton shirts. You're just going to get a different result, whether, you know, it's more of a ring spun or not shirt. So with that, now I'm going to jump into the shirt and pre-treating the shirt. So Epson has developed their own pre-treatment, and this is a solution that goes onto the shirt before you print on it, and it would be going onto a, you know, a black shirt or a colored shirt. And it's the pre-treatment, it's the durability, washability, softness, it's all there. So it holds everything onto the shirt. And I really what I want to focus on in here, and I'm going to show you later that it's there's no sticky residue once you put it on there, and it's easy to apply. And again, we do sell two different types of pre-treatment. One is for cotton shirts and one is for polyester shirts. And I wouldn't jump into this to do polyester shirts. And again, there's be more training when it comes to polyester shirts because there's more to the process than what we're going to highlight here today.
Hey, Darci, I'm going to jump in. A couple of people commented that your microphone is coming through a little broken. I don't know if you're on a headset or whatever, but is there any chance you could try to clear that up?
Well,
do you want me to cover this slide while you look into it?
Sure.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike. So pre-treating the garment. This is literally the most important part of printing on any type of cotton fabric. So big thing to be concerned with here is there's times to pre-treat and times not to pre-treat. When you need to pre-treat a garment is when you need to lay down white ink. So if I'm laying down or I'm printing on a white t-shirt, there is no requirement to do any type of pre-treat. If I'm printing on a black shirt, a blue shirt, red shirt, etc., then I do need to pre-treat the shirt. So what the pre-treat does is it's a binding agent that allows the white ink to stick to your actual cotton garment or cotton substrate, to say, your fabric. The reason we need that is the way that the ink is formulated, the white ink itself does not stick to cotton on its own. And there's a slide coming up that will show you that demonstrates what happens if you try printing without the pre-treat. So we need to give you that white ink as a base. And I've always kind of explained to people, they said, I always need to pre-treat a shirt? And general rule of thumb is yes, but there are some exceptions. As an example, if I'm trying to print a dark pink breast cancer awareness logo onto a light pink shirt, that's a scenario where I would not need to spray white ink underneath it because I'm spraying pink on top of pink, if you think of it that way. Now, if I'm trying to print that same breast cancer awareness logo on a yellow shirt, then I would need to pre-treat it because I need to neutralize that yellow cast of the actual shirt. So when you pre-treat the shirt, the pre-treat that we're showing here is the Epson pre-treat. You do dilute that typically between a 1-to-3 ratio and a 1-to-1 ratio with distilled water. So you make it a little bit thinner. So you're not buying a full concentrate, or you are purchasing a concentrated box, as we see there, and you are diluting it with distilled water. Pre-treat itself is very important that it meets a lot of the safety requirements that are out there. The pre-treat that we're showing, the Epson pre-treat, does meet the OEKTEX standards. So what that basically means is that it's going to meet all your child safety laws. It's safe for the operator to actually touch the pre-treat solution. It's also safe as far as when it's drying off, because there are some pre-treats out there that will give off a gas that actually has some toxic warnings on it. And it's safe for the wearer as well. So it's something that you can rest assured that if you print on it, it's safe for the operator and safe for the wearer. There is a separate pre-treat available for polyester. The polyester pre-treat is thicker. It is not diluted. And it's a little trickier when you get into polyester, because the polyester pre-treat is designed to go on straight polyester. If you are doing a mixture of cotton and poly, so as an example, it's a 50 cotton, 50 poly shirt mix, you would still want to use the cotton pre-treat. The cotton pre-treat is a better binder. Polyester is a little more difficult because it's not a fibrous fabric, as you saw in the slides earlier. Cotton is very fibrous, and there's a lot of things for it to stick to. And Darci, you want to select the next slide, or you want to add anything to that?
Try, but let me know. Just let me know if the volume goes out. I've messed around with it a bit, but I don't know if it's fixed it. So
keep talking.
Okay. Yeah, just
we need some feedback here.
So here are some different methods of pre-treating a shirt. We have kind of an okay method and a better method. This would be what I consider an okay method. This would be where you put the pre-treatment into a sprayer and you just hand spray the shirt. So once you're done with that, you would want to do a foam roller to help push the pre-treatment into the fibers to help cover the fibers. And then you can either let the shirt air dry, or you can use a heat press to help set the pre-treatment in. So I'm going to go past this one because there's actually a better, more accurate method of doing this. And this would be working with a pre-treatment machine. So this is definitely what we recommend doing, because you're just more consistent when it comes to laying down the pre-treatment. I always reference back to, like, if you were painting a wall or spraying a wall, you put the paint down one way and then you roll and do another one and do another, you're like going up and down with a roller. That's what spraying with a hand spray would be like. You might get more pre-treatment at the top, or I'm sorry, less at the top, maybe more in the middle and less at the bottom. So with pre-treatment, you do want to have a nice, even, consistent spray across the shirt, because it will show up in your print later on. You'll have different areas where it's more bright versus maybe a little washed out in an area that was pre-treated less. So Mike mentioned earlier about the white ink adhering to the pre-treatment. And this is a good example of what happens if you take a shirt that has not been pre-treated. That's what we have here on the left. This shirt, the pre-treatment, the shirt was never pre-treated. So I took a black shirt, put it on the printer and printed, and the white ink went through the shirt. There was nothing for the white ink to bond to. Uh, the color stayed on top, and I was able to, cure it afterwards. Now, then I grabbed a shirt that was pre-treated and printed on it, and now the white ink was able to bond to the pre-treatment that had been bonded to the shirt, and then you have that nice white underbase, and then the printer printed the image on top afterwards. So how's the volume going? Is it better? I'm just double checking to make sure everyone can hear me fine.
Seems to be on my side. If anybody
Okay.
else has any additional comments, please just add it in the questions area and we'll pass it on through.
Yeah,
Yep, we got
please.
another person saying and can hear you better.
Great. Okay. So we are focusing a little bit more on pre-treatment, just a few more items here. But when it comes to taking your pre-treatment, when you purchase it in the box, as Mike mentioned, it is concentrate. And so you do mix it with distilled water. There's different recommendations. And as I was mentioning earlier about the shirts, how the shirts are made differently, you'll have to test about, like, pick the type of cotton shirt that you want to work with. And, there are numerous types of cotton shirts out there, and, take that times how many different colors there are. We can give you a guideline of like how to mix your pre-treatment to the shirt that you're working with, but I mean, you're going to have to test. So we started off, we had a Fruit of the Looms in our office, and I mixed quite a few different, I made 2 different batches. One was half pre-treatment, half distilled water. And then the other test that I did was 2/3 pre-treatment and 1/3 distilled water. You're able to control, then this is another reason why I'm an advocate for pre-treatment machines, because you can control how much spray is going down. So I could say that I wanted to spray at a 40% density, 80%, or even 100% density. And so by doing these different tests, it was able to kind of show me what type of print I would get out of um, the printer, because I had the printer set at the same setting. So these were all the information from my computer to the printer never changed. The only thing that changed was how much density I put down on the shirt. And so you can tell, especially from the left one to the right one. I mean, I hope you can tell on your guys' screens the difference in your print quality. Now, it's not saying that this one was bad or this one's better, because, again, this is going to be personal preference of the printer and what your customer's wanting. So, but this is how you can control or change your what your image is going to look like. So my big takeaway here is, if I was starting off with direct-to-garment printing, I would pick one brand just to start off with, to begin offering to your customers. And then test that shirt with various levels of pre-treatment, whether you wanted to do 2/3 pre-treatment, 1/3 distilled water, or half and half. But just do that testing, and then print your image with the different types of pre-treatment that goes down onto the shirt. This would be just a good way for you to learn your equipment and to learn the capabilities of what you can do with it. You can do some pretty amazing prints with this printer. But when it comes to the common questions that we get from customers after they purchase the printer is, you know, why, I want to get these images like as bright as I seen at the trade show or at the demo when I seen the, when the printer, when I was looking at it. And it all comes back to the pre-treatment. It's like, how are you pre-treating the shirt? So another item about it is a way you can check on consistency is once you've pre-treated the shirt, it's nice to have a scale, and you weigh the shirt ahead of time and you zero it out, and then you pre-treat the shirt, and then you put the shirt on the scale and you measure it afterwards. And that's where you can see how much grammage of pre-treatment you have on there. Once you've pre-treated the shirt, you want to let it dry. And then before you put it into the printer, you would want to press the garment, and that helps flatten out the shirt, kind of removes the wrinkles and takes the moisture out. You don't have to press it very long, 5 seconds, just enough, 10 at the most. I probably press it less than that, but really you're just wanting to get a nice smooth surface to print onto. So when it comes down to, and I know we're focusing a lot on the pre-treatment, but this is really what we want to educate you guys on, is that when it comes to white shirts, it's really not necessary to pre-treat, because when you're printing on white, you're not using the white ink from the direct-to-garment printer. Some people do pre-treat, but it's an optional and not really necessary. Now, if you're going on to a colored shirt, you will need to pre-treat. There are a few exceptions. So if you're going onto a colored shirt and your image is dark and you're not going to use any white, so if you're doing the tone on tone, you may not have to pre-treat. And then if you're adding any, white to the color shirt, or if maybe the image is lighter than the shirt, then yes, you will need to pre-treat because you'll need that under base.
One other thing I
Yep.
kind of want to comment too is in the previous slide, we all saw a couple of scenarios where we had a white shirt, a colored shirt, and another colored shirt, one we actually pre-treat. Something also to keep in mind, if you're doing most of these shirts, the whole idea of the white ink is it neutralizes the actual color of the shirt if you need it neutralized. Meaning, if I have a yellow shirt, blue shirt, pink shirt, red shirt, whatever it might be, but I'm just spraying black text on it. With just spraying black text, I can treat that as a standard white shirt because I'm not trying to neutralize the color of the shirt. Black is kind of the cover-all. So if I have a blue shirt and I print black text on top of it, my text is going to be a little bit of a bluish black, but for the most part, it's going to be black. Same thing if I print it on a tan, it's going to be relatively black with just a little bit of a tan tint to it behind the actual black ink. But for most people, what they're concerned with, it would still look black. So black type or black object on a colored shirt, typically you do not need to pre-treat those as well. Okay, I'm just kind of reading through some of the notes, if you bear with me a second. Okay, the amount of spray that, or the amount of spray is, because when you do pre-treat a shirt, there are sometimes that you want I'll call it like a vintage look. So I want a shirt that looks a little bit more faded, looks like it's been worn, 50 times already. Sometimes those scenarios you can spray less pre-treat, the ink won't be as vibrant, but that's a situation where sometimes you don't necessarily want that vibrancy. You want it to look a little bit more faded. Sometimes you can print those a little faster as well because we don't want to use as much ink. Faster print times, less vibrancy, but that's sometimes a good thing. Can you do a double pass of white to pass the pre-treat? No. The white ink itself has to have something to stick to, and that does not stick to cotton. So we do need a pre-treat underneath it. So anytime, as I mentioned, you want to spray or you want to print with white ink, you do need to pre-treat if you're using white ink every time. Okay, direct-to-garment compared to other technologies. There's a couple of different technologies. One is some of the companies out there will have I'll say a donor sheet based situation where it's, they're taking a laser printer and they're heating up a donor sheet that they're transferring over, or sometimes there's different devices that will be more of an iron-on process. With those devices, you're taking some sort of coating or think of it this way, a sticker to say, and sticking it to the chest or of your shirt. So when those technologies are a little easier to get into, they're typically better for, or not better, they're focused primarily more on solid colors If you're getting into photographic work, then definitely spraying ink is going to be better than transferring over a vinyl, to say. Different technologies. When you do get into it, the economics of direct-to-garment is typically less. You know, the startup cost is higher than the other technologies, but the production cost is lower, and the quality is also higher with more versatility. And then also with the typical, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say I'm gonna try something real quick. I'm gonna try making me presenter and then Darci again and seeing if we can unfreeze this screen because it looks like something's stuck on GoToWebinar.
Okay. In the meantime, keep asking questions. I'm reading them. Okay, good question. Somebody has a conveyor dryer. So, workflow process. When you take a shirt, say it's a black shirt for argument's sake, and what we need to do is we need to pre-treat that shirt. So I'll take my shirt, I'll pre-treat the shirt. So I'll spray my pre-treat liquid onto my shirt. That shirt does need to dry down. How it dries isn't overly important other than the fact that it needs to dry. When you get into when you're actually getting into purchasing unit, and Coastal can definitely help you with this, most people will start out with a heat press. So a heat press kind of does three purposes. One is you can use it to dry down your actual shirt. So you spray a shirt in some fashion, you dry it down. A heat press is a big, fancy, large iron. So you're going to boil, if you think of it that way, you're going to boil the water out of the shirt to dry the shirt down. Second use for a heat press is, early in the presentation, Darci mentioned about taking a shirt and ironing it. Ironing it does two things. One is it flattens your shirt to make it easier to print on, so there's less, I'll say, hills and valleys as it goes underneath the print head. And two, it also takes the humidity out of the shirt. So if I have a shirt that it's been sitting in my on a shelf for a while, that shirt might have 50% humidity in it. If I'm trying to print on that shirt, I'm spraying a liquid ink onto a shirt that's already saturated with 50% moisture. So the ink just doesn't stick as well. I don't get as much color vibrancy. Hitting it for that 5, 10, 15-second flash right before printing flattens the shirt, but it also takes the humidity out of the shirt, and you get a better quality print. Now, getting back to the conveyor belt, I can also do some of this stuff with a conveyor belt. So if I do pre-treat a shirt, I can then take that shirt and put it through a conveyor belt to dry that shirt down. A lot of higher production companies do it that way. It's just more economical as far as time and expense and labor is concerned. So I can send a conveyor through a conveyor belt to dry down the shirt. It might take a little more time or a double pass to do it compared to if they are a screen printer. The screen printing inks dry a little faster than trying to take the moisture out of a shirt. So typically a double pass through is what you would be required, or slowing down your tunnel so it has enough time to actually evaporate the moisture off. Very important, if you are going through a conveyor belt, you want to make sure your conveyor belt has some sort of air circulation in it, that we're not just doing radiant heat, we are indeed doing radiant heat and a fan. So pre-treat, send it through a conveyor belt. Still recommend the heat press last second, just to take down that little last bit of humidity, but most importantly, don't flatten that shirt before it goes in the printer. And I am seeing Garment Creator.
Yes.
Active, and I see a mouse moving, so it looks like we got it figured out.
Yeah, I think there might be a lot of webinars going on right now because the platform that we're using has frozen up on us a few times. So anyway, let's see if we can move on here. I'll keep moving the slides if you want to keep talking.
Absolutely. Hopefully everybody can hear me clearly. I have no problem talking loud. People that know me know I talk probably too loud. Okay, Garment Creator. Garment Creator, what we're seeing right now is actually Garment Creator on the PC. Garment Creator on the Mac looks virtually identical, just except for a few different things that are Mac oriented versus PC oriented. So when you look at a shirt, it gives you a preview of a black shirt that is just a representation of what it's going to look like on black. If you look at the cyan outline in the square, that is currently representing the size of the platen that we have loaded. So in this situation, if you're looking at the smaller cross pattern on the inside, you will see that that is 1/2 inch and the little darker lines are 1 inch areas. So if you're looking to place an image exactly in this area, you can use that grid as kind of a reference. But that is your printable area. If your image is not in that area, it's not going to print. looking at the right-hand side of the window, you'll see we have some canned presets that are up top that represent the different types of shirts we're trying to print on: black shirt, light colored shirt, dark shirt, and so forth. So one thing that's kind of neat is Epson has actually created what we refer to as garment black. So if I do have an image that has black in it, so if I have some darker areas and see in the back of the jaw on the dog here, those areas are going to be black. So instead of spraying white ink under black ink, well, if your shirt is already black, we're just going to use that black of the shirt to save the ink cost and a little bit of production speed as well, but mostly it's a cost savings situation. On a white shirt, again, we're previewing it here, the light colored shirt. So when we switch it over to that, this is going to spray no white ink whatsoever. It's going to spray a little bit faster. And on the right-hand side, if you didn't see it that quickly, there are some different settings in the lower window that will represent kind of speeds and feeds. I want to print this fast. I want to print this high quality. There are some things that you can change. There's some predetermined settings. I'll say some canned recommendation, high speed, low speed, high quality, and so forth. There are some different things you can do to make your colors a little different as far as brighter, darker, warmer, cooler, and so forth. When you do print on a dark shirt, this one will actually it is going to spray black ink where there is black. So we're assuming the shirt is not black, and we need to spray white ink to neutralize the shade of blue under that, the jaw on the dog, and then it'll spray black ink on top of it. So, but the representation we see on the blue in the background, that is user selectable, so it is not really the color of your actual shirt. We're not scanning your shirt, but it's just a preference. So if you want to get a visual of what it's going to look like on a blue shirt versus on a red shirt, you can do that. It's just a simple preference we can change. Here, black shirt, this setting for dark colored shirt, spraying white. This is for just printing a black and white image on a dark shirt. So we're spraying white ink onto a dark shirt, and it automatically converted the color photograph into a black and white photograph. Kind of a neat little mode that we use every once in a while. The next one, tap over, is for layout settings. In layout, there's some canned settings that we have. For the most part, we want to bring a file in at 100%, and centered is the default. But you can go through and change and have some different defaults, and you can change some things. There is a pull down for platen. The printer does ship with a platen that is 14 by 16 inches. There is a larger platen available, so there's a pull down. If you pull that down, it will show you larger platens, smaller platens, things like that. And then the preview on the left-hand side will actually represent and give you a grid pattern for the size platens you actually have used. The next slide is going to show, we've taken that image and we've typed in different dimensions. We said we want it to be smaller. We want it to be in the top left or the top right corner of the chest. This is kind of neat because in here, if Darcy wants to put your mouse down on the plus sign in the bottom right area, over there. So if I have a certain setting I'd like, I can click on that plus sign and it'll come up with a prompt saying, give it a name. And in this situation, they called it chest logo men's large. So if I'm printing on a men's large shirt, I might want to have the chest logo be in a certain area. If I have a men's, or I say a women's small, I don't want to have the chest logo maybe as large. I don't want it as far over. I might want to go with a smaller logo, closer to the center, where if it's a men's, triple XL, I want to move that image way over. If I have the setting for a men's triple XL and I print it on a women's shirt, the logo is going to be, say, inner armpit, which we don't want. So you can customize that. So when you bring a file in, you can just have multiple different settings, men's large, women's mediums, and so forth. You click on it, it scales it, it moves it where you want to automatically every time. So it's kind of a neat, great little feature. The next tab over is color replacement. This is kind of I'll say a last minute change thing. So if you have solid images or a drawn image, sometimes you can change this. It doesn't always work the greatest with true photographs because there is a variance. That is actually what we refer to as tolerance. If anybody uses Photoshop, tolerance is what same as in Photoshop. Tolerance is like if you select a magic wand in Photoshop, how much of an area is actually selected. But the main purpose of this window here is we give you three options. What I click on, make transparent. And then the next tab over, it would be click on make it white. So here are the colors in the actual job. So I can say make a specific color white. And then the third tab over is color. So make this color a different color. And the different color is something that you would type in with your actual RGB values. So if you have a color that is a blue and you want it to be a darker blue, you can just type in values for a darker blue, and it would replace this blue with that blue. If you do get into fairly complex situations where I'm getting very, very fine detail, keep in mind that the Epson, the preview we're looking at is a medium to low resolution preview. If you need to be very, very fine where you're trying to get in, change the color of my type, you're going to want to go back to your design application to actually do that. To do it in here, it's just not going to give the effect that you want. With the Epson Garment Creator, there is a very neat feature called, it's an estimator. So our estimator lets you type in certain things for currency. You can type in, I'm paying X amount for a shirt. I'm paying X amount for my cartridge of ink. So in this scenario, they've typed in that they have a 600 milliliter cartridge at a cost of $217. So the shirt we're looking at there with the dog on it, if they estimate that file, it comes in and it tells me that I've used, see if my numbers are right here, 1.23 milliliters of ink, and times my 36 cents per milliliter comes down to 44 cents of ink on that shirt. So that shirt's going to cost me that 44 cents. If I would take that dog image and make it smaller, the cost would go down. If I print it on a dark shirt, since I'm spraying white ink, the cost would go up. But it's kind of cool that you can go through and estimate every shirt that you're going to print before you actually go through and print it. There's also some neat features under other costs that aren't showing right now, but you can put in other costs. So if you do have one of these pre-treat machines, as an example, that's spraying the same spray every single time, you can actually estimate your cost on that. So if my pre-treat is 50 cents a shirt, I can type in that it's 50 cents a shirt and add that right to my production cost as well. If needed, you can take all this information, export it to a browser. So it comes up in Google Chrome or Internet Explorer or Safari. And export CVS is comma separated, or CSV, comma separated file. That's basically taking into an Excel. So if you're trying to do that into a job costing application, you can do that as well. And after this presentation.
Okay, I'm kind of nervous about this. I have another poll. So.
And while she's doing that, I'm going to go through and read some of these questions. So.
Okay, that's great. All right, I'm going to launch the poll, and hopefully when we're done, we can take it off. So, all right. So how does Garment Creator seem? Like, does it seem like an easy product, something that you guys could pick up pretty easily? I will tell you, when it comes to the different learning curves, there's a lot of different applications that Coastal works with people on. Dye sublimation, Matthew mentioned earlier. We have our Oki printers for doing laser transfers and direct to garment with the Epson. The DTG printing with Garment Creator is probably the easiest learning curve out there. So not to influence your decision here on how you're pulling though. Any good questions, Mike? Do you see any there?
I'm just going through and typing out some things here.
Okay. All right, I'm going to close this out, and hopefully I can close it.
Okay. One question, I'm not going to type in the answer, I'm just going to answer it. We talked about getting the shirts to dry down via heat press or a tunnel. The ink actually needs to get up to a little over 300 degrees to actually dry. So typically what we recommend is that the heat presses are set at about 335 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you're running a tunnel, you want to run your tunnel a little hotter than that because we don't have the direct contact. So typically a tunnel is going to be around 340, 350 degrees of your actual settings. If you get really into it, there are ways you can actually calibrate the heat of your device because all devices are not consistent, which I'm going to take a couple moments out here, if you don't mind, Darci. Heat presses are important because when you look at different heat presses, some companies will sell, you can buy a heat press directly from China fairly inexpensively. And yes, it does have a heating element, and yes, it does get hot. But if the left side is not as hot as the right side, or it's inconsistent, and some of these heat presses have just a single heating element where it's just the shape of a U going underneath your on your heat element or your heating press. Inconsistent press temperatures are going to give you inconsistent results. So please don't skimp out on a heat press. Get something of a decent quality from a reputable manufacturer. Most of the companies, when you buy them from dealers, are going to sell decent brands. If you try to save $1 and go directly to buying something from overseas, buyer beware, because I've seen situations where I had a customer buy one directly from overseas, I'll just say it that way. And when they got it in, the heating element heated up and it never got to heat because the thermostat in it wasn't working properly. When the plastic on the heat press starts melting and the metal starts turning, or the white paint starts burling off the heat press, it was a pretty good sign that that heat press was faulty. I haven't seen that from any of the big U.S. manufacturers. I have seen it from some of the off-brands. So please, be safe, buy a good quality one. Don't burn your house down. Just buy a good heat press. Don't skimp out there as well.
I definitely.
Sorry about that, but I wanted to.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. A lot of people do that when they're starting off in this industry, and I will admit I was one of them as well. And I bought a cheap off-brand heat press when I first joined the industry X amount of years ago, and I will tell you within 8 months I had to turn around and buy another heat press, and I've had a nice USA made heat press well over 15 years now, and it's a good quality, so it's well worth the investment. And I didn't burn my house down. So, all right, so now we're going to jump over, and this is the fun part. We're going to actually see the printer. I wish I could do this live. I can't, but we've got some good images of the printer here. So this is the F2100 direct-to-garment printer. We're going to show you some nice features on it. So again, we mentioned the platen. That's what this is in the front here. This is the 16 by 20 medium size platen, and that's what comes with the printer. And there's actually a cover on it. This cover is optional. You can go with just the glass cover, or you can use this grip pad, and it's an option for laying the garment down faster. It's like faster loading time, and it can be applied to the small, medium, and large size platens. Speaking of the platen, you can easily take the platen off and switch it out to a different size. And I do have a list of all the sizes here in a little bit for you to see the different options available, but easy to lift off and change out the platens. The platen can also raise up and down. So if you're doing a shirt, you might be at like a level 2, maybe 2.5. If you're doing a hoodie is much thicker, so you're going to have to drop the platen down. There is you can't see it, but there is a sensor that goes, it's like a beam that goes across, and when this platen actually goes into the printer, if the platen's too high, or if the garment is setting up too high, or if there's a wrinkle, it'll actually notice that and give you a little beep. The printer will beep, and the platen will come back out and ask you to adjust your height, or even adjust the garment if there's any wrinkles on it, because you definitely need a nice smooth surface to allow the printer to do its printing on. And the platen does.
Darci, Darci, it sounds like your mic is cutting in and out a little bit again. So.
Oh my goodness. All right, I'm going to let you take over then. This is where it's 25 millimeters, if you want.
So continuing on with the slide. So what we're looking at here is a manual adjustment for the height of your actual shirt. So if you think of it this way, we want to print as close as we can to the actual garment. So we try to get the print head just above the garment. This was one reason I mentioned earlier about ironing that shirt to get it flat, is because that way we can get really close. The closer you get, the finer the detail, the sharper the image you're going to get. What the leveler adjustment here does is it lets you raise and lower the actual platen, which is raises and lower the shirt or the garment. So if I'm running a hoodie, obviously my hoodie is thicker than a t-shirt would be, so I would need to drop this down. So each notch going from 2 to 2.5 to 3 in the setting there, you're dropping it about 0.5 millimeter, which is a very, very fine amount. So you can drop it. One thing to keep in mind is we don't want you to drop it too much. So if you say, well, if I drop it all the way down, then I can take my shirt and I can print on it. Even if it's wrinkled, it'll always clear. It's not going to air out. But please do keep in mind that is one reason why we get a lot of phone calls on quality issues. It's something where, the accuracy just is not as nearly as good as it could be as if you were up and close with the garment. So we get a lot more blurry image if you back it off. It's just, throwing a baseball. If you're throwing it 10 feet, you can get it fairly close. If you're trying to throw that baseball 50 feet, you're not going to be as close to your target. Same concept. The closer you are, the more accurate it's going to be. Why don't you slide on to the next slide, Darcy? Here we're seeing the printer. The printer is actually open. So what's kind of neat is you can actually see through the printers. You can see through the cover. We can see the photograph, the garments behind it, the yellow printed shirt and the black and white shirt as well. So while it's printing, you can actually get a glimpse down inside the printer if you lean over. And this also lets you open it up and see some of the maintenance things inside the printer. Maintenance is a huge thing when it comes to actual direct-to-garment printing. So in the past, there's been a lot of companies that have had direct-to-garment printers. And when you do get into direct-to-garment, a couple things to keep in mind, especially when you deal with white ink. White ink is very thick. It is sticky. It needs to be maintained a little bit. So we've done a couple things. We've designed this from the ground up as being a direct-to-garment printer. There's only a couple of companies that have done that. Sometimes your entry-level products, they're taking a photographic type of printing. They're taking a third-party ink and they're putting it in the machine. Most printers that are out there, to clean the printer, they have some sort of rubber squeegee which pushes the ink, the actual residue, the fibers from the cotton fibers, whatever the buildup would be. They try to push it out of the way. Here, what we've done is there's a fabric wiper inside the machine. People kind of laugh about it, but I call it a lint roller for the print head. So that is going to print. You're going to get hundreds of print, thousands of print out of each fabric wiper. So that is going to, you see, there we go. So after you do a print, that's going to wipe off the print head because we do get cotton fibers that stick to that. After you do a cleaning cycle, it's also going to help clean that. In the top right, you'll see that there is, I'll say 5 plus 1. The 5 on the right-hand side are individual capping stations. We go with a dry cap versus a wet cap. Some companies will say the idea behind a wet cap is that when you're done printing, the print head soaks in, usually it soaks in ink. Well, we'd rather wipe the excess ink off the print head, get it pristine, and then just cap it off. So the 5 on the right-hand side are just a dry cap. There's no ink. It just seals it off, so therefore no extra dust, dirt, or anything can get in the print head while you're not using the printer overnight, etc. The one on the very left, you can see it's a little lower. That is actually will raise and lower underneath the print head for doing cleaning cycles. So when we do a cleaning, ink goes into that. It sucks ink through the print head, and that helps clean the actual machine. Next slide. All of that is done through the control panel of the printer. So typically, the capping station is not accessible because the print head rests there. So you do go through on the control panel of the printer and tell it to go into the print mode or the cleaning situations. So it will move the print head out of the way so you can do your cleaning. Next one over. Ink cartridges. When the printer ships, it's going to ship with 250 milliliter cartridges, as we see here in the CMK. On the other side of the printer, there's another drawer with the other inks. There's also the cleaning cartridge in here. The cleaning cartridge, this is one thing that also separates us from the competition, is at the end of the day, instead of going through and wiping down your printer and getting in there and putting a cleaning solution into it, we actually spray the cleaning solution into the capping station. So a couple slides back where I said that one capping station goes up and down. Instead of you diluting it or trying to get some sort of, because as I mentioned, the white ink, to simplify it, if you think white ink is like white out. If you let it sit for long periods of time, it does dry out, it becomes rubbery. So cleaning solution helps dilute that and gets the ink out of the way. So when we do go into doing that cleaning cycle, we are spraying that cleaning solution into that capping station. And it does that automatically at the end of every day for you. So you don't have to do that maintenance shutdown procedure to say, it just does that for you. The next slide will actually show the left side of the printer where we do have those 2 white ink cartridges and a little yellow cartridge. I do want to point out that you can mix and match the cartridges. So if printer will ship with the 250 milliliter cartridges, you're going to buy the 600 milliliter cartridges. They work fine interchangeably. Almost everybody buys the 600 milliliter cartridges exclusively just because of cost. They're lower per milliliter if you think of it that way. You're not buying an expensive printer to print 5 shirts a month. Hopefully you're going to be in production and you're going to be actually running through it. So let's make it economical with a little larger cartridge. Another thing that is different from our printer versus some of the, I'll call them the cannibalized printers that people just, make a direct-to-garment printer, but from another printer, is I mentioned a couple of times that white ink is thicker and white ink needs to move. So all white ink needs to be circulated. So with the cartridge itself, we ask that you pull the cartridge out daily, and it will prompt you on the control panel, shake your cartridges today. You take them out, you shake them up for 10, 15 seconds, you put them back in the machine. So that keeps the ink in the cartridge moving, but the ink inside the machine is automatically circulated with a circulation pump. That is huge. This is why if you look at a lot of competition, a lot of people out there have bad taste in their mouth. Oh, I tried direct-to-garment a couple years back. It didn't work. My machine blew up, so forth. Well, those machines weren't designed for direct-to-garment in the first place, and there was no type of circulation for the white ink. So eventually the white ink just gummed up inside the machine and blew up plugged the lines and blew out the heads. Since we actually make the ink, the print head, and the machine, we want this whole thing to be under warranty. We'll cover that later. But it's a solution, we're bringing to the table all the parts of it. So if you look at another company that sells ink and then puts it into an Epson printer, they don't care if they blow out print heads. It's not their print head. Well, we care. So circulation pump is huge. And the next slide after that. To get files in, I covered Garment Creator already. Garment Creator is PC or Mac based, but what you can also do is you can print off of a thumb drive. Now, I do want to point out that this thumb drive the file has to be saved on this thumb drive ahead of time. You're not just going to walk up with a JPEG on the thumb drive. You are going to need to run it through Garment Creator and then put it on that thumb drive and then walk over to the printer. This is done for a couple of reasons for productivity. If you're a one-person operation and you kind of trust yourself, I'm going to go on the computer, I'm going to print the file, and it just goes directly via USB or Ethernet over to my printer. But in some larger production facilities, we see it where the design department is up front in the building, an office environment, and they're running the Garment Creator, they're setting up the files and so forth. They print it onto a thumb drive, then they walk the thumb drive back to maybe some seasonal help back in the warehouse where they have 5 printers. And then that person gets the thumb drive and they're told print 5 of this file, 10 of that file, and so forth. The person operating the printer doesn't have any control over the front end software. So that way they can control what actually gets printed. There is no side jobs being done by the production people. They only can print what they are needing to print. Also helps eliminate the need to keep the printer closer to a network. So if it is indeed in a warehouse and you don't have Ethernet connectivity all the way back, thumb drive is another way you can do that. And that's all set up right through the control panel of the printer. This is okay. When a shirt is actually ready, once the data is on the printer or from either the thumb drive or from the network, the blue button on the top right shows up, it lights up, basically saying, printer's ready to go, are you ready? So if you have a shirt ready to go and everything is down, you hit the blue button and it actually will start printing. Next slide. We're actually showing here is an image of the shirt printing the white layer down first. And so it does it goes through the printer, it prints a layer of white, it'll take the shirt back inside the printer, and then it'll put a layer on color on top of it. That gives us an opportunity to have that white ink dry down just a little bit before we put more ink on top of it. You don't necessarily want to have wet ink on top of wet ink. The disadvantage there is then your colors will bleed more. You want to have your white ink dry down before you put color on top of it. Next slide. You'll see that the shirt actually coming out is a finalized shirt. And one more slide, Darcy. There you go. There is your final garment. Now, one thing to kind of keep in mind also is when your garment does come out, please keep in mind that it is wet. So if I take that shirt and fold over itself, it is going to smear and pretty much ruin my shirt. So you need to keep it flat, keep it, ink away from itself. You screw that up once, you'll never forget it. Continuing on to platen. The medium platen is what actually will ship with the printer, and that is a 14x16 platen. There are other platens available that Epson makes that are on the upper left-hand slide. The 6 on the left-hand side are all Epson platens. but there are also third-party platens for more specialty applications. As you see, the one on the right there is actually for printing on the larger, the one that she has her pointer over right now is actually for doing sleeves, I believe it is. And the lower one is for doing hats.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys can hear me or not, but I've even heard people use these for koozies as well.
Oh, many applications. But the 6 on the left, you'll see there's big ones, there's small ones. My experience is most people will start out with the medium one, which obviously you get with the printer. The next one you buy, I don't know if Darci agrees with me, but from what I'm hearing is probably the small platen would be next, or the extra small would be one of those two, because when you lay a shirt down to be printed, you want the shirt to be laid down flat. You don't want to stretch your shirt over the platen. So if I have a lady small as an example, a lady small would be stretched over the medium platen. So if you do want to print that, you'd want a smaller platen to print over, to print on a lady's small shirt.
Yeah, I would agree.
Then there are
other the youth shirts too, ladies and youth shirts. And then we have a lot of people that use this for doing baby onesies, and you would work with the extra small platen for doing baby, newborn or toddler shirts.
Yep. And the other one that's kind of unique, and there's a couple of different ones. There's a groove platen on the top right. The reason it looks a little different is actually a groove down the middle. And if you look real carefully, you want to point out where it's kind of cut out at the collar point on the bottom part of it. There you go. So this is a groove platen for doing polos, because you have on a polo shirt, the fabric is folded over and sewn, so it's raised up. So you kind of want to get that down underneath, because you're not going to print on the collar anyways. And same thing with a hoodie, because with a hoodie, you have a big zipper going right down the front. You don't want that hoodie to be your top surface, so you kind of tuck that zipper down in, get that out of the way.
Nice.
And questions?
So these are some, common questions that we get. I put this one in here, and I hope my audio is okay. I see a new headset in my future. So I'll talk, but if it's unbearable, let me know, or even a little annoying. But I did put in here, we do get a lot of screen printers or people who are even pondering over, should I go into screen printing or maybe direct to garment, or why even this is a good solution for screen printers, existing screen printers. So I've got a screen print background actually. So I definitely can relate to this with screen printing. For those that don't do screen printing, you have to make a screen for every color that you're going to do. So if it's a 3-color image, you are going to there's a low cost if you're doing the same image, but you're also going to be doing single colors a lot of the time. The more advanced screen printers can definitely do a more colors. So I was talking to a lady yesterday, and she had a screen printing setup where she could do up to 4 colors. And so that's what she's limited to. And there's a ways around that, as screen printers well know. But you're going to do a screen for every color, and there's just a lot of setup and maintenance to do with your screens before you ever get to printing the shirt. Screen printing is a great option for like large runs. So there's a nice complement between screen printing and direct-to-garment printing. What DTG printing can do is, you still got the same setup. You're still working with the graphics, but especially if you're doing a white shirt, you're doing the graphics and then you're skipping over all these processes. You're going straight to putting the shirt on the printer and, printing as many colors as you like. You're not limited to your colors. Then you need to dry your inks afterwards, just like you would do with screen printing. And now you're done. And then store your file, because if somebody comes back and they need it again for, maybe they had it printed on an adult shirt, but now they need it on a toddler shirt, it's not a big deal. You can easily just put the new platen on, the new shirt on, and print it on a toddler shirt. So you've got that flexibility as well. Again, with the dark colored shirt, we're going to add one more step. All you have to do is apply the pre-treatment and then let it dry. I guess that's 2 steps, and then go straight to the printing as well. I tell customers who are existing screen printing facilities, this is a great complement to your shop. I know for a fact that people are going to come in and ask for an order of 1, 5, 12, or even 24, and screen printers kind of they kind of cringe at those requests, and you can say yes to those now. On the flip side, another solution is that you can there's times where people will come in and say, oh, I just need, maybe 2 or 4 shirts, 4 different designs. I want to take those designs and take it to the school or whatever club that they're with and get orders. But people want to see the shirt and they want to, you know, size it for what size they should be ordering. So you could do that with directed garment printing and get those, that beginning, the prototype shirts done. And if the order turns into being, 25 or 30 shirts, you do it with the direct-to garment printer. But if the order turns into being, 300, 400, you can still do it this way, or you might want to do it with screen printing. So a lot of complements there between the two. Oh yeah, so sorry, I missed that. So yeah, with direct-to garment, definitely lower cost to produce short runs and customized. You're going to get more of a high image quality. You can photo quality, and really can print on demand. It's just going to be ready in a few moments for them to take that shirt out the door. So another common question is, how fast can I print a shirt? And it is going to vary between what your image is, what level you're going to print out. As Mike showed earlier in Garment Creator, you can adjust your print quality. I would say on default, a white shirt on a 10 by 8 design is around 28 seconds. It is going to increase when you're doing a dark colored shirt because it has to print first the white and then the color. When you're in Garment Creator, there's a few more levels to choose from, actually 6 different levels. And I've done a lot of testing on this. I personally, I mean, everybody has a different opinion. I really can't tell that much of a difference between a level 3 and a level 5. So I'm pretty confident and comfortable working with the printing with the default level of 3. How's the warranty on the printer? There's a lot of always check on warranty and know that when you're buying an Epson printer, you've got great warranty. So if you're looking at any other brands, always just compare the warranty. With the DTG printer, the F2100, it is a standard 1-year warranty, and that's everything on the printer, including the print head. Lifetime tech support. So as long as you have the printer and you need help, you can call in and get like production support with it. That's through Epson as well, and Coastal too. I mean, we're here to help you out as far as any production flow and all that. You do have the option to extend out your warranty. You can do an additional 1 year or a 2nd year and a 3rd year. And what else is nice is that you can do that at any time during that year. So, if you purchase it, let's say the printer today, and you don't get the extended warranty, that's fine. And then 6 months from now, 9 months from now, you can tack that on later. So, and it's not prorated. It's a set free. So what's all included with this? It does come, as Mike said, with the full set of inks. Those are, I believe, 220 milliliter of inks. The Epson Garment Creator software is included. Uh, I'm not sure if Mike mentioned this, but multiple people can have Garment Creator. So if you're in a shop and you have 2 or 3 different designers, all 3 can have the Garment Creator program onto their computer. It comes with obviously the printer, and then we do shipping as well. Tech support both from Epson as well as Coastal. And we do have financing available as well if this is something that you're looking at adding to your shop. I will want to show you this. Now, I'm going to do a little disclaimer here. You know, this is kind of I've got some numbers here for you. And these are all, like, these are solid numbers right here, but then the rest are kind of going to be estimates. So if you're looking at doing a pretreatment, there's a variety of pretreatment machines out there. We have the Pearl pretreatment machine that I really enjoy working with the Pearl. You can really control that density, how much pretreatment's going down onto the printer or onto the shirt, sorry. And then the printer right now, the price is $12,995. A heat press, a 16 by 20 quality USA made heat press. You're starting around 1,500, 15 to probably like 23, 2,400 is kind of a general price range. So you're looking just a little bit around 18,500 for your total equipment cost. Now we've just got some general ideas of what a person could make and some what your return on investment would be there and what your average revenue could be if you were looking at, you know, and the $14.40, like that's kind of an average price, retail price that we see on shirts across the US. And we break that down even to like what it would cost to print on the shirt, whether you're doing, you know, light shirts, dark shirts. We even threw in a little labor cost for you there to see, you know, all right, this is what my monthly sales would be, but this would be what my monthly cost would be for printing. So we want to break it down even more to see, like, all right, this is where do I break even? You know, what's the break even number of shirts I'd have to make within 5 months, and then my investment's done. You know, I've paid it off. So breaking that down a little bit more could show you what your monthly profit would be, and then potential profit, you know, 1, 2, and 3 years. And again, my disclaimer, you know, here there's a lot of variables that go into here. Your labor costs, obviously, what you're going to be priced per shirt, you know, what size of shirt you're doing, because this would be a scenario if I was printing, you know, the same 14 by 14 design for a year. So there's going to be some variances in this. All right, and then I definitely want to do a, you know, shout out to ACG Equipment Finance. Chris over there has helped a lot of our customers out, help get their business going. So if this is something that you're interested in, I would say, you know, reach out to Chris and he can help you out. And if you need an application, we have financing available on Coastal's website as well, and you can click on that for the application. Okay, I think we've answered the questions. If we've missed anyone, or again, you know, thanks for staying with us throughout this, you guys, especially through that audio issues and the poll question earlier. But we really enjoy putting these webinars on. We have another one coming up on Tuesday and Thursday next week. We've got one that's going to be on sublimation printing, doing mug production. And then another one on sublimation printing with cut and sew production for people who are doing jerseys and apparel type application. Really, it's continuous dye sublimation production. So we really enjoy doing these. I hope you guys do too. We would love to hear from you. There's going to be a survey afterwards, and we just would love to get your general feedback. You know, what else would you guys like to hear from us about? And we're here to share our knowledge and to bring in the experts like Mike Moon from Epson to help us out. And you know, let's take advantage of this time and get educated. And we're here for you. Coastal's open. If you need anything, give us a call. And thanks again for joining us. And thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate it. Everybody's time. Sorry about going a little over on length, but I thought it was a great session. I thought we got some great, wonderful questions. Very active audience. So thank you.
Yes, I appreciate it. And I appreciate Matthew over there in our marketing department for helping us put this together. We appreciate it, guys. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.